Good evening to all our viewers, and welcome to another edition of Evening Review. My name is Philip Joseph, and tonight we turn our attention to the legal landscape of our country, where in studio tonight we are joined by legal consultant and managing partner of Stratton Oak practitioners or legal consultants, so to say, and that is Malcolm Kambanzera. I hope I didn't put your surname over there.
Yes.
He is also a former SRC, a UNAM SRC representative, a former NANSO member as well. Finally, also your last stint was at the National Youth Council. Look, thank you for making the time, as we are bound to touch on the governance and just everything revolving around the legal space within our country. But firstly, before we dive into that, can you maybe just take us through what led you to, what motivated you to go into the legal space?
Okay. Thank you, Philip, for having me tonight. Of course, what motivated me to join the legal space, it's been a longing of mine. I think I had a direction from a young age that my resolve was always that I was going to end up in the legal space, particularly at the time as a legal practitioner, of course. However, my role at the moment is more versatile. It's interdisciplinary. I deal with legal, labor, and compliance, business advisory, etc. But your question is what initiated this resolve for me to join the legal space, and it has always been a longing of mine. So I've never changed direction. It came at a very young age. I think I should have been 10, 12, and I've always known that being a lawyer is my thing.
That's very interesting, I must say. But from where you're sitting right now, in terms of how our legal landscape looks like, how would you then describe the state of our legal and justice system in Namibia?
I might say that it's stable. It's stable, particularly because if you look at our legal and justice system, it's right-based, it's firmly rooted in our constitution, and we have an independent judiciary. So these are basically, if you say, the fundamental key principles that are, in place for us to have a proper functioning legal space and legal and justice system. And it also ensures through the independence of that judiciary that whatever legal process is undertaken, that justice and fairness is served independently of, of course, all the outside conundrums that might usually arise in a situation where your judiciary is not so independent as you might see in other places around the world.
Okay, yes. That's good to know. But if you spoke of stability, but given the fact that things are constantly changing in and around the world, given the fact that there's so much happening, especially at the side of geopolitics, do you think that our system is still keeping pace with our economic and governance needs?
Of course, I might say yes, but there's a but to it, or let me say yes, but not fast enough. And I say this because this world is ever changing. Of course, you mentioned geopolitics now, but let's revert back to our situation at home. That's of course tied to global phenomena. We have now just discovered the oil and gas fields. There's mining, there's technology that is ever evolving. So you might say, yes, we are progressing with the world. However, not fast enough, because we need more specialized lawyers that cater to these ever-evolving spaces. So with this oil and gas that's coming up, of course, there's a booming number of young lawyers and even the old guard that are now equipping themselves with knowledge in the mining and oil and gas space. And it's a good thing. At the same time, there are other areas that need a lot of specialization. They need a lot of if I might say, a lot of individuals to get involved. And it's not just legal practitioners per se. We're talking about consultants, we're talking about governance specialists, we're talking about academia as well. So everyone should get involved to ensure that we're always keeping abreast and at the pace of this ever-changing geopolitical world of ours that affects, our legal space here at home. Yeah.
I mean, it's good that you mentioned of young and up and coming lawyers, especially these ones coming from university whatsoever. And for someone like yourself, you've made quite waves and a name for yourself. I mean, given the fact that we've seen you in multiple media reports, if we have to look at the typical pathway for a young and up and coming graduate, what are the type of routes one should take?
Let me sum it up for you in one word and say it's tough.
Yeah.
The word is tough. Of course, the typical pathway for, let's say, an LLB graduate, of course, as you might know, or perhaps I might enlighten you, that we refer to law as the most honorable profession and the most versatile profession as well, because there are so many avenues open to you, and the typical pathway for an LLB graduate, one is, of course, you choose whether you want to be in a corporate commercial space, whether you just want to be in a corporate space, whether you want to follow a litigation path. That would obviously lead you to choose in between one of the many options that are available to you, such as candidacy, of course, at the law firm, where you undergo tutelage to ensure that you are equipped with the skills, the drafting, research, etc., of your everyday lawyer that goes to court and advises clients and fights and defends them, and etc. And then you may choose, of course, to go in corporate space. You can choose to go and advise corporate clients. You can work in a bank. You can work in state-owned enterprise. It's really up to what your narrative is in terms of what you think you can contribute to. Okay. And you build that narrative around your own name. You build the narrative around what you can offer. And that's basically it as a pathway. Some of us, we choose, of course, to be consultant because it is interdisciplinary. You deal with almost every intersection of the law, basically.
Yeah. And again, you spoke of it as tough, but the way you explained it, maybe some of our viewers might look at it like, I think he's making it sound easy and so forth. But what about those, again, still at the part of young professionals, those trying to make a name for themselves? You always find these rumors going around, especially in the corridors, whether it's in law or in any other profession. This thing of, you need strong connections, you need networks to get yourself from point A to point B, from B to C. How is that happening in the legal space?
Okay. And I think I said tough earlier at the expense of contradiction, but it's a good contradiction because it's neither a yes or no that it's tough to get in the space. How I may put it is talent and qualification matter a lot in this legal space of ours. Clients only have so much confidence in you in as much as you can solve their issues. I imagine you unable to solve people's issues or unable to advise them in the ordinary sense. What that creates for you is, a barrier for yourself in order for you to ascend and create a name for yourself as a tough guy in this space that can handle issues. And that is the tough part. If you are ill-equipped, and that's why I say talent and qualification matter particularly. And the perception that's there is still around, of course, that you need to know someone, etc. And a lot of young people young law graduates that come from, you might say, disadvantaged backgrounds, for example, might not have the same connections, as you said, might not have the same circles, might not even have the same confidence to approach, the big guns that are in the industry. Most might get through the door because your father picked up his phone and made a phone call. We've seen that at a lot of law firms. Someone just pitches up, and it's merely by way of network and connection. And someone else might have it tough. You might have to knock on so many doors before you are given an opportunity. And even when you're given an opportunity, it's upon yourself to not fumble it. But if you fumble it, it becomes tougher.
Yeah.
That's basically it, where the legal space in terms of how to get in. And in closing, in terms of this question, is to say, build a narrative around you. Yeah. What is the narrative? What is the perception that people have about you? And that will make it easier in this space. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, just one more question before we go on for a short break. You spoke of talent, and I'm trying to picture it. What does that really look like? Because you find often, if you sit around lawyers or people within that space, they always use jargon, they use jargon terms, whatsoever, where you just seem to be lost. But in reality and in your space, I mean, there's always that element of hard work. But does the talent, does it look like something where one is able to articulate themselves? Does it require one to be not aggressive per se, but in terms of just stamping authority when you speak and so forth? Or does it just come down to, okay, because he's the son or daughter of whoever?
No, not as such, no.
Yeah.
I can genuinely say it's not about articulation. It is definitely not about articulation. We have a lot of legal practitioners and a lot of lawyers, a lot of consultants that are they are not the best at articulating themselves. And I could mention a few, but I won't at this point, because we know a few lawyers that cannot articulate themselves to the best of their ability, but they are tough. They are tough in the sense that when you go toe to toe against them, you might lose. And why is that? You might ask yourself, and this is where talent comes in. You're asking what is the basic test basically for talent in this space, and it's about specialization. What are you known for? And that's what we refer to talent. If you are saying, I am known for labor jurisprudence, that becomes, if we are looking for Philip and we have an issue around labor jurisprudence, Philip is your guy to go to. If we are looking for a criminal defense lawyer who is tough in the criminal space, we are looking for Philip. Philip is your guy, So that is what talent means. And talent also means, they say a good lawyer is not necessarily the lawyer that knows how to recite the law and, say according to section what and what and what. A good lawyer is a lawyer that knows how to find the law. A good lawyer is a lawyer that knows how to find opinion, case law, jurisprudence that speaks to their issue. And you very rarely find a number of lawyers that are peculiar in that nature, in terms of that specific talent, knowing how to find anything to support their cause, even if you know that this individual, in terms of public perception and not fact, this person might be wrong or they might be guilty in this situation. Trust me, a talentful lawyer will find a way to deal with your issue and you'll work scot-free.
Okay. Yeah. Indeed, Malcolm. But we've touched quite on a lot, but we are not done yet. We will have to go for a quick ad break. So when we are back, we will dive more into broader issues surrounding our legal space. And to our viewers at home, do not go anywhere, and we'll see you right after the break. Yes, viewers, we are still joined by legal consultant Malcolm Kambanzera in studio with us tonight. And now we're just going to dive a bit uh, deeper into some of the bigger issues surrounding our legal space, especially on the issue of court cases. I know maybe this is a part where the Office of the Judiciary often steps in, but from your point of view, there's always this constant delay of cases, postponement of cases, especially on the criminal side now. Even whether it be small issues, where do you think the issues are? And I know you've touched on specialization. You also mentioned that we also lack in terms of having adequate lawyers or sufficient lawyers and magistrates and so forth. But where do you think the core problem of this really is?
Of course, the perception persists that court processes generally are slow. And we cannot be oblivious to that. We've made significant strides in terms of how cases are handled, particularly in the court roles and the court process. But still, you are correct. The narrative and the perception persists that court processes are slow. And they are slow because some cases are just complex.
Yeah.
The wheels of justice in terms of our case are very slow. And it sometimes is attributed to the complexities of cases, slow investigative processes, slow case management between the parties themselves. Sometimes it's not even the court, it's just between the parties themselves. And then, procedural hurdles in terms of the court roles, court processes that hinder the effectiveness or the expediency of our system. And you cannot run away from it, because not only does justice have to be fair, it has to be credible, it has to be grounded in, principles of natural justice and fairness, and as I said earlier. And you cannot do that if you are rushing the process. Because we have, for example, if I might say, a critical component of natural justice and fairness is that another party must be heard, or the party who's adversarial to you must be heard. And should that not happen, should that not be in place, how do you proceed with the matter, for example? And that is why processes are slow. And as I said, for you to get to a point even where the case must start, the real issues are now tested, not preliminaries, because there are so many preliminaries to add. There are so many preliminary issues that must be dealt with first before you deal with the issue on its merits. And those are merely procedural aspects before you test the substantive issues. And take, for example, how long has the Fish Rod 5 or Fish Rod 10 maybe by now been in incarceration? It's been long. And then you ask yourself, is it fair, is it not fair? What are the attributes that ensure these guys are still there up until now? Should they be there? Should they be not? Is it fair, like I said? And how do you test, really? Especially when you have a case like the Fish Rod guys vis-a-vis the NAMCO guys. Others are on bail, others are in. But the length, at which, or the length of time that these guys have been in incarceration now is almost 7-8 years, maybe 7-8, 6-7 now. That's how slow the wheels of justice are. You can't take away from it, because just recently, I think you guys as newspaper also reported that there were delays in the matters of the Fish Rod trial, and some were as a result of the parties themselves. When you hear, like the former Honorable Saki Shangara delaying his own matter, or so he's accused by his counterparts, the other lawyers or the defense lawyers for his co-accused are saying this guy is delaying, issues. And that's what I was referring to when I said our processes are slow, because sometimes it's procedural from the court's angle, sometimes it's from the party's own doing, and it's what we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
And on the issue of public perception, and it's also good that you touched on the complexity that comes with court cases. But do you feel that our public is, especially Namibians specifically, are educated on the basics of how our legal system works? Because, for instance, you'd find, let's say, in a case where there was a rape case, let's say in a town like Ocharongo and another one in Walvis Bay, let's say if both alleged appear in court, and then if the magistrate court in Ocharongo says, look, this guy is found guilty on count 1, count 2, count 3, and then he's then sentenced, whereas you find the person in Walvis Bay is, let's say, for instance, his case is then delayed or postponed. You find these things often create that resentment towards the courts, specifically where people also start to make comparisons. Say, look, these two individuals likely committed the same crime, applied the same aggression, did A, B, C, and D, but hence only one is sentenced. Why can't the same be done to this one? So it then comes down to people saying things like, no, even though people say our justice system is independent, where is this coming from? Even going again to bigger cases, you find people going into the issue of, look, some of these things might be politically driven. There might be some political interference. Maybe people don't want to be sentenced because who is involved in these cases, stuff like that.
I think, I believe rather your question ties into two areas. One is, of course, public opinion, or what we call the court of public opinion. And it's a brutal one, to put it as such. It's a very brutal one, because with the age or the advent of social media and all those technologies that are around with us now, everyone can say, or anyone can say anything at the touch of a button. Anyone can express their opinion, how they feel, and most of it is usually driven by emotion or personal convictions or subjective views. And that is the danger we have now, because what is happening is that the resentment that you are referring to grows in the public space outside the court process. Sometimes it is, of course, you find that the people drag it into the court proceedings, but mostly the court of public opinion remains public opinions. It doesn't affect the proceedings of the court in itself, and it's mainly attributed or let me say it's attributed to the fact that we said, there's some level of independence that the judiciary enjoys, and that has kept, the floodgates of public opinion from opening and flooding into court and interfering with a judge's judgment, how he applies his mind to an issue. But at the same time, there is also at times when you might find public opinion or public phrases, they creep into court processes. And I make a reference to, for example, when I think I just can't recall correctly, but it was regarding the NAMCO situation. I think the magistrate used a phrase, either while applying his judgment or while applying of course, applying his judgment or making a decision or writing the judgment rather, or the decision that he has come to, he used a phrase to refer to the case as, I think he said, the oil rod case or the Namco rod case, you know. And why is that? It's because the court of public opinion has crept in, and it has had an effect on his judgment and how he views this whole matter and how he arrives at the decision in relation to this matter. And this is mainly why, even when the accused were, the accused, of course, were granted bail, it was cited heavily that the magistrate misdirected himself in how he applied his judgment, and particularly there was issue taken with him referring to the accused as the Namco rod accused or the oil rod accused, you know. So that happens. And then secondly, I think you had spoken about legal education. The Law Society of Namibia has a program in which, of course, countrywide, it ensures that they go into the regions and provide legal education to the masses. Then there is, of course, the Legal Assistance Center, which primarily is centered on ensuring that legal education for the laymen is provided to the masses. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, this legal society, the Law Society, also takes its members, takes them into the regions and ensures that, you know, people have some form of access on a pro bono basis, or at least minimally invasive into your finances, that they can have access to lawyers and have their issues taken up and so on. That's it.
Okay, very interesting, man. Malcolm, I wish we would have had this conversation longer, but you know, we had to be cut short because of time. But I would just like to say thank you for making the time for joining us this evening. It was a pleasure to have you there. You've touched quite on a lot of stuff that that can be quite be useful, especially to our viewers at home. Yes, and to our viewers, thank you for tuning in. This brings us to the end of our edition tonight. With me, your host, Philip Joseph, and the team. Goodbye.